here with Mark Bennedict, an incredible inventor, and he's here today to actually pick up his granted patent that we filed. Had a little bit of the normal back and forth with the patent office, and we're able to convince the examiner of the uniqueness of the idea. So Mark, it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about how you first realized that there was a problem that you started addressing, and then tell us a little bit about your idea and what it...
Well, long story short, I'm a deputy. My specialist is medical and mental health of maximum security inmates. That means anytime there's any inmate to be transported, the top profile of my team, and I do that. So I've spent the last 20 years in hospitals, in operation rooms, and doing procedures, as well as the rooms themselves for recovery. Two good friends of mine own the Larkin Hospital system. One of them is the professor, if you will. He's actually the teaching one. He was doing rounds with his students one day, and he noticed almost an entire box of unused gloves in the trash can. It's such a problem that the nurses have now simply put the trash cans underneath the dispensers, because they know they're going to drop copious amounts of gloves, and they don't want to bend down and pick them up.
And just so for the viewers here, because in the process of drafting, we've learned a lot more about these issues, but when a medical glove, this instant it touches the floor, the protocol is you have to throw it away. So there's a lot of wastage. I thought it was one or two or a couple gloves, but Mark points out sometimes it's whole handful comes out.
More than that, like I was telling John earlier, a tech was doing rounds with the patients the other day. Our inmates inside the dormitory, they were doing the vitals, and the glove companies are aware of this problem because they've now created an adhesive system for the gloves. They're all adhesed together. They're supposed to be adhesed by set. You know, when you pull one out, only a set comes out, but unfortunately, heat during the shipping process and anything else, now all these gloves are glued together. She pulled one out and a whole pile came out. It ended up being 47 gloves in the field, but it's stuck to the other glove. So the problem, the solution to the problem has actually created a bigger problem. Because now you're not pulling, 4 or 5 out with a glove. You're pulling out 10, 15, 20 sometimes with a glove, because they are now literally all stuck together. So it was counterproductive what they tried to do to resolve the problem.
So their attempt made it worse.
Yeah, they're losing more now.
So you had, they say sometimes for an inventor, the key is to try to solve a big problem. And sometimes there's a lot to be said for solving small problems, but you've done some calculations on the market size, and you're finding that to be tremendous. Tell us a little bit about what you see as the potential market.
There's only 4 major companies there's others, but I'm talking about that make the bulk of the gloves that are sent out globally. There's 4 major companies globally that sell the NICAD material gloves, and they account for probably $1 trillion a year in sales. So if I cut anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 of the waste, that's $500 billion a year that this box, and it's the only solution to the problem. Everybody else has tried to resolve this problem. We have resolved this problem.
And one of the things that Mark did when he started with us is hired us to do a patent search to make sure that nothing was out there. So Mark your hunch was that there's nothing like the product out there. Our patent search showed that indeed it was a unique idea. There's nothing like that out there. But the proof is in the pudding. Here you have the granted patent, and the patent office itself just grants the patent. That's an indication that you've come up with something unique.
And additionally, through COVID, we found that there was an equally as valuable of a solution to another problem. It's called ACAIs, which account for $45 billion, anywhere from litigation to probably, health, resolving the health problem. When you go into a hospital, ACAIs or any illness you contract from the hospital that you didn't go in with. There's about 80,000 people a year that die from that, and there's over 1 million people that actually contract the healthcare associated illnesses and infections. COVID really illuminated the second value to the box, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it. When the box is in the closed position, it stops everything airborne from hitting the gloves. And in our studies, we found that the human sneeze and cough goes well over 100 feet, leaves the body at 100 miles per hour, and remains airborne for more than 10 minutes. There's no hospital room on the planet that's more than 100 feet in any direction. That means head of bed to the box of gloves, they're contaminated guaranteed. In fact, everything in the room is contaminated. My grandmother was an anesthesiologist, and she used to always say that hands are the #1 distributor of all disease to the human body. When you came to the dinner table, she didn't tell you to put on a mask, she told you go wash your hands. And she always said, if you find your way into a hospital, find your way out as quickly as possible, because of this very problem right here. When you put your hands on something contaminated and you put them on somebody else, you have now spread that disease. And let's face it, gloves in a hospital environment is your hands, because everybody puts on gloves.
Right.
So if you put on gloves, contaminated gloves, you're going to contaminate somebody else in the process, because the hospitals are not going to replace those gloves.
It's hard to predict when someone's going to launch something that first, like this is, as Mark pointed out, it's a huge market, a big problem, and yet until you filed, there really wasn't any adequate protection for it. There's nothing out there. And you mentioned sneezing as like a huge dramatic example, but just what about somebody that's just sick and in a hospital and breathing, the gloves are not
coughing.
Or coughing, that's an issue as
and
well.
when you do the study on how much they expose an area with that one action, it's appalling. I mean, when you think about 100 feet is a long distance. 100 miles an hour, you have a Porsche, you know how fast 100 miles an hour is.
Yeah.
And then it's, the most dangerous fact is it remains airborne. Depending on the airflow and the quality of the air, it remains airborne for more than 10 minutes. And when you think about that, that's scary. So this resolved not one, but two problems. And fortunately, we did discover the second one during COVID. It took COVID to really realize that. But it does resolve two huge problems that no other box addresses, no other dispenser addresses.
Okay, and that explains, and that's why, clearly we're able to get across to the examiner those distinctions, and that's what the basis of this patent is. Is there any advice you would have for new inventors that are going through the patent process for the first time?
Know your product. That's the most important thing, because in trying to get this pushed back through with the USPTO, we had to really pin down what was specifically different from this and what it was competing with. So I would say know your product. That way when those arguments arise, you can address them quickly and abruptly. Say, hey, but my product does this product doesn't do that. And that's what we had to do with this, because it was very hard to get past what was in its way. I think it was a toilet paper dispenser. It had the same action, but it didn't have the same action. But the way it was worded, it was the same thing, even though it was contrastingly different. So by knowing my product and knowing what that product did and what my product did, we were able to overcome that, because we were able to say, wait a minute, this product doesn't do this, our product does do this, definitively. So I would say know your product very well, because you are going to have arguments. The USPTO is going to find a way to really press you and say this is not your idea. But like I said, if you know your product, you know what it is and how it is.
The patent on his product. So.
Thank you so much.